Hi, my name is Monica Stroik. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. Why did you want to become an artist? When did you know it was what you wanted to do? So I grew up in a family of artists, aunts and uncles and grandmothers. And so it was very normal to receive art supplies as gifts, to go to art museums on the weekends, to learn different media from my aunts and uncles, and was also very influenced by the table conversation at dinner with a father that's an architect and two brothers that ended up going into architecture as well. The exact moment of knowing when I wanted to become an artist, it was always there from when I was a child. Nature and pattern and repetition seem to play a large role in your work. Can you talk more about your process and approach? So currently, my process involves being site-specific. So I go to the location of where I'm going to be exhibiting the artwork, the new body of work, and I do a lot of research, and that research involves drawings and photography, writing and sketching, and I compile all these different ideas and then go back to my studio, lay them out, and continue the brainstorm process of working with the ideas of space and place, and thinking about the viewer coming into that space from a busy street, depending on the site of the place. But thinking about the previous experiences of people coming through and witnessing this space where the gallery is, and also thinking about the intersections of paths crossing, and physically and also intellectually. So, and then I begin to prepare the surfaces. I currently work on panel, and I begin to mix colors that represent those places, and I'm very drawn to the contrast of painterly versus hard edge, and perspective. So working with the space and the colors that I witness in that place and space feeds into the actual work and what it ends up being. And so there's a very long process from the beginning to the end and what it ends up looking like. And yeah. I'm inspired by a variety of artists. For example, painterly artists such as Claire Sherman and Frances McCormick. Also, like her, artists that create layers of contrast from painterly to gesturally to hard edge. And also artists that incorporate perspective in their work, like Dexter Dahlwood and Matthias Weischer and David Schnell. Has teaching changed the way you create art? So I would say absolutely, because through the process of art making, I find myself asking myself more questions. The kinds of questions I ask my students all the time. Like, why am I using that particular color? Why am I using that exact mark making? So asking more questions so I can get deeper and more at the root of the why and the how. How do you see the arc and or progression of your work? So I currently see my work as part of a loop like that. Because when I was younger, when I started in undergrad, when I first started, I saw myself as an abstract artist. Then I went and I studied in Florence, Italy, and became very obsessed with landscape painting, and had some great teachers there that influenced me in that direction. So I spent probably the next 5 years painting landscapes, and that whole experience of being out in nature. And then somewhere along the way, I took all the doodles that I was doing in my sketchbook and threw them up on the wall, made them larger, and started to become more of a gestural painting. So I went back to abstraction and was very influenced by the Cobra painters at that time. And from there, I felt, at that point in time, I felt like I had come full circle, that I had gone from abstraction back to abstraction. Now, having gone through grad school and getting my MFA, I feel like I've taken this another turn where I'm combining all of that past, but also pulling from this other part of myself, which is really comes from my family and my father and my brothers who are architects, and all those conversations at dinner about space. So I find it really fascinating and interesting to watch this development, and I'm very curious to see where it takes me next. What is the toughest part about your job, and what is the most rewarding about your job? So, the toughest part is encouraging those students that do not believe in themselves or trust themselves to become the artists that they can become. I believe everyone can become an artist if they choose to. So that's the hardest part, is getting them to see that. The most rewarding part of my job is definitely seeing the growth and the development in each student, no matter how small or how large. And to spend so many years seeing these students grow, I feel it's an honor and a privilege to have that window into their lives and be part of that. In the age of the internet, people have more access to information than ever before. Art can reach across borders, water, and time zones. What does it mean to be an artist today? So hopefully it means that artists are more informed and inspired by all the art happening around the world. And it means that artists can become more connected than ever before. It's pretty powerful, to be quite honest. There is the belief that the arts can play a role in society beyond the studio. How can artists bridge the relationship between global cities and the place they call home? And I believe that the Arts in the Embassies program is playing a huge role in this aspect of showing work, bringing work to other cities, other countries, exposing people to other cultures that otherwise would never have been exposed. And then there's other programs like Sister City projects where artists will exchange studio spaces or have exhibitions in their city where they are bringing their art to a community that otherwise would never have been exposed to their work. Giving artist talks, and through the internet, through websites, through online dialogue, through organizations, local organizations within communities that bring artists together to build the community and the dialogue. Some of this is also, you see artists coming together and doing mural projects. It's really important that every city has an arts council, has ways in which they're bringing the arts into the community to create that culture. Because without art, there is no culture. So a huge thank you and huge applause to Arts and Embassies program for all the work that they are doing to bringing art around the world and exposing all of us to each other. Thank you. How do you feel about your art being displayed in Ankara, Turkey? So what's cool is that both my father and my husband both have traveled to Turkey. So even though I'm not there physically, just knowing that a piece of me is there is really amazing, and I feel very honored to be part of this show. So thank you so much for including my work. It was important for the ambassador to have an exhibition about seeing the world from different points of view, how a single work of art is open to multiple interpretations. Describe or comment on how your work fits into that theme. My painting Mercury was painted from a very specific place, a very specific vantage point in Arlington, Virginia. But because of the way that it is painted, introducing arbitrary colors, the red, the green, the orange, the yellow, and the way that the background is painterly, it could be a dark, stormy night, it could be water, there's no solid ground, so it's very dreamlike and ethereal in that sense. So the viewer that comes to view this piece, based on their past experience, places that they have visited, it could remind them of a specific place, or it could take them to a new land, a new window into another world. So this painting fits in perfectly into this exhibit. A great work of art can reveal the world in such a way that we never see it quite the same again. Major museums around the world are encouraging patrons not to actually look at the art, but to pose in front of it. Then to share their oh-so-artful self-portraits on Twitter with the hashtag #MuseumSelfie. What is your opinion of the selfie and how it became a global phenomenon? So, to be honest, I'm actually really new to Twitter this year, and I don't use it very often, but I really like the idea of the #MuseumSelfie because I believe it could generate a lot of conversations that wouldn't otherwise happen, and also generate intrigue and propel people to go to see exhibits that wouldn't otherwise go because they're seeing some little corner of something, or maybe they just want to go and be part of that trend of the #MuseumSelfie. But even so, it's getting them to the museum, it's getting them to see these exhibits that they otherwise may not have otherwise seen. So I think it's positive. Is Instagram destroying civilization or making it totally awesome? So I'm actually also new to Instagram this year, but I actually love it because I'm able to view the world through my friends' eyes and see things that otherwise I would never see. And it also has inspired me to actually create a painting based off of one of my friend's photos. So how cool is that? For the emerging artist, and artist starting out, my advice is to keep creating your artwork no matter what. And to find those opportunities, look for the opportunities. They will not come to you. Find those residencies where you can keep growing within your work. And find those crit groups that you can find a group of people where you feel comfortable sharing your work with, to get critical feedback. I think the most important thing to remember is that you're always growing, you're always getting better, and your ideas are always evolving. So it's a constant cycle of life, and to never get stagnant and never stop. Even when you don't have ideas, just keep sketching what you see before you. So my best advice is keep looking for the opportunities. Never give up. Thank you. It's been fun talking to you.